Good afternoon. I'm Donald Makombe, bringing you the latest developments on our breaking news. So the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance held a press briefing yesterday and gave a strong warning to Israeli lawmakers on who had gone to publicly criticize the newly signed MOU of the Iranian deal with the U.S. Vance reminded them that President Trump is the only world leader supporting Israel, being backed by the might that comes with superpower nation like the United States.
Very clear. He does not withdraw from Israel. No one could withdraw from another country the right of self-defense. Israel has the right to defend itself. But fundamentally, the Israelis, just like everybody else, have to respect this peace process that is fundamentally good for them and good for the entire region. What the president has grown frustrated sometimes is that we seem to be right on the cusp of a major breakthrough in the agreement, and then all of a sudden there's a major explosion that goes off in a civilian population center in Beirut, and a lot of people who have nothing to do with Hezbollah lose their lives. That's not acceptable. That's the sort of thing that we've asked for closer coordination so that we ensure it doesn't happen. And our message to the Israelis, just as our message to everybody else, is fundamentally, we want this peace process to be good for you. We do not want Hezbollah attacking Israel. But in order to ensure that that happens, we have got to actually build the kind of regional framework that can cut off the money to Hezbollah, cut off Iranian support for Hezbollah, and also ensure that Lebanon's territorial sovereignty is respected by all parties.
And there's a report in Axios that Netanyahu's fuming over this. Israel doesn't feel bound to the MOU as it relates to Lebanon. If, as you mentioned, your frustration with Israel striking in Beirut, hitting apartment buildings, if that continues, could it torpedo the deal? And what would the U.S.'s response be to a broader war in Lebanon involving Israel and Hezbollah?
Yeah, well, I don't want to get into hypotheticals that could torpedo the deal, because I think the president's expectation is that all of our friends, the Israelis, the Arabs in the region, we're going to work together and actually see this deal to completion. Now, I saw the Axios report, that Netanyahu is fuming. That's not reflective of the conversations that I've had with him, but maybe he's saying something to somebody else that he's not saying to me. What I will say, and this does bother me, is that you have seen people within Bibi's cabinet who have come out and attacked the deal, and in some ways very personally attacked.
Saudi Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Fahad was speaking on the reach deal with Iran just a day before President Trump signed the MOU, and he shared his views and party that of his nation and allies in the Middle East region.
I'm not going to comment on the MOU specifically because I haven't seen the final version, but I will point to the issues of concern and hope and and where we have risks. Obviously, the nuclear program is the issue that is of primary concern, and my understanding is that there are clear commitments to resolve that issue along lines which I think are very significant and very much in line with what we are hoping for. So addressing the possibility of a pathway to a nuclear weapon. The detail will matter. It will be most important to see the verification mechanisms that are in place beyond the actual commitments on enrichment, the actual commitment on removal or downblending of the nuclear materials, how we will have a long-term sustainable verification regime is what will matter the most, and that is what will give the international community, but also the regional countries, the most confidence and the ability to look towards a better future. And of course, there are the issues of freedom of navigation in the Straits of Hormuz and the broader regional security context that will need to be addressed. Some of them, I think, will be covered through the MOU or the final agreement between Iran and the US. And there is a need, of course, also for a regional security dialogue between the countries of the region and Iran to address those concerns and to make sure that we build a framework that respects national sovereignty, that respects the national security interests of all parties in our neighborhood, and ensures that we are never faced again with the risk of such a huge and devastating conflict. First of all, I have no details on this fund. I have no information or insight into the concept behind it, so I can't comment on it specifically. But what I will say is, as you mentioned, as a result of this conflict, Iran attacked not just the kingdom, but all of the countries of the GCC. That has created a significant gulf of trust, a significant gulf, a significant loss of trust between all of us. We were just in the beginning process of rebuilding our relationship with Iran as a result of the Beijing understanding after a significant period where we had broken off relations. And that was only just starting to really gather momentum, and we were starting to at the edges, explore potential areas of opening up on economic cooperation and things like that. And I think we are now, actually, we have since then regressed, and we're going to have a conversation how we rebuild that.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insists that Israel will not pull its military out of Lebanon for the sake of security of Israel. He emphasized on the achieved milestone in the defense of Israel and praised the United States as an ally, while insisting that Israel will continue on the current trajectory for the sake of the security of Israel. The Prime Minister further reiterated that Iran will not have nuclear weapons as long as he is in office.
Broke the axis of evil, the chokehold that Iran tried to build around us. We are judging Hamas in Gaza, where we hold more than 60% of the Strip's territory, and in Lebanon, we removed the threat of ground invasion from our communities. We broke Hezbollah's missile power. There is still work to be done in both places, but we have done a tremendous job. It is true, the struggle is not yet over, and more challenges still lie ahead, and these require from us composure, a firm stance on our security interests, and at the same time, maintaining the important connection with our American friends who fought alongside us, shoulder to shoulder, and we appreciate this very much. We will continue to navigate our path with wisdom and discretion. We will preserve the achievements of the government. We will preserve the achievements of the war. These are achievements of the entire people of Israel. Just as we restored security and prosperity to the Gaza envelope, so we will restore security and prosperity to the northern communities. This requires maintaining the security zone in southern Lebanon. This requires that we do not leave there as long as Israel's security needs demand it, because this zone separates Hezbollah terrorists from our citizens and communities. And in a broader view, we will continue to adhere to the supreme goal that guided us and has guided me during most of my adult life. Iran will not have nuclear weapons, and as long as I am the Prime Minister...
NATO defense ministers met in Brussels with discussions headed by its leftist Secretary General, Mark Rutte, while he still played his old trick of flattering the United States President Donald Trump. The U.S. Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, took the floor to speak and delivered his speech with a tone that carried superiority of the United States. Most importantly, the core of the message was delivered with a sharp precision, making it clear that the United States will no longer allow Europe to ride on its back, and that the United States demands a complete reform of the organization.
My first NATO defense ministerial last February, and as the Trump administration has said again and again in the last year and a half, our allies must step up. President Trump has been very clear on this point for many years and over 2 administrations. And for too long, NATO has been a paper tiger and a one-way street. No more. And that's what the Hague Summit is all about. That's what defense spending commitments are all about, transforming NATO back into a real military alliance that's focused on hard power and real deterrence, a NATO 3.0, modeled on the NATO 1.0 that won the Cold War, with our allies actually taking the lead in Europe's conventional defense. And that's what NATO was always supposed to be and what its framers like President Eisenhower always expected. Europe was not supposed to be a dependency of the United States. That's not what Winston Churchill or Charles de Gaulle or Konrad Adenauer wanted or expected. No, Europe was supposed to be a military power allied with a strong America. This is the essence of NATO 1.0. As Dwight Eisenhower himself said as early as 1951, if in 10 years all American troops stationed in Europe for national defense purposes have not been returned to the United States, then this whole process will have failed. Eisenhower was Supreme Allied Commander then, not yet our nation's 34th president. But he and his Allied counterparts, all of them still living in the shadow of World War II, understood that NATO's power did not come from committees or from meetings or from small flags on fancy tables. It came from warriors.
For more updates on the global news, stay connected to our Love World Network's channels. And now moving on to more international news, let's look at the headlines. South Africa's Parliament Impeachment Committee presses towards President Ramaphosa's impeachment. Senator John Kennedy not satisfied with the deal and insists he does not trust Iran. Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana unite to tackle cocoa sector pressures imposed by the West. And lastly, President Putin has praised Vietnam relations as trade surpasses $6 billion. South African lawmakers are fighting tooth and nail in a litigation of tug of war with President Cyril Ramaphosa, where they're demanding their constitutional right to facilitate the impeachment process against the president. The National Assembly Section 89 Impeachment Committee resolved to formally oppose President Cyril Ramaphosa's aging court application to halt the Fala Fala inquiry. The committee, advised by independent legal counsel, maintains it is constitutionally bound to proceed and will fight the interdict within the Western Cape High Court. Ramaphosa filed an agent interdict to pause the impeachment proceedings until a judicial review of the 2022 Section 89 panel report is completed. He argues proceeding with impeachment hearings will cause him irreparable harm. The 31-member impeachment committee consulted with an independent legal team, which advised that lawmakers must execute the Constitutional Court's order without delay.
Greetings, it's Makashle Ghana, the chairperson of the Impeachment Committee. This morning, we convened a meeting of the Impeachment Committee wherein we resolved that as a committee, we're going to oppose the agent interdict application by President Ramaphosa, and that myself as a second respondent in the application needs to oppose this application, and I have to petition the Speaker to join the committee in opposing the application. So I will be in conversation with the Speaker to say that the resolution of the committee is that we need to oppose the agent interdict. But if the Speaker is not going to oppose, I will still, on behalf of the committee, oppose the interdict application. The work of the committee continues. So until such time that the court tells us otherwise, we are still going to continue doing the work of the committee. And to that effect, next week, Wednesday, on the 24th of June, we will convene a meeting of the committee wherein we will get the draft terms of reference and also the process of appointing the evidence leaders. So the work of the committee continues. We are focusing on the things that are in our control. The things that are outside of our control, we are not focusing on them. We will continue to discharge our responsibilities without fear, favor, or prejudice.
We are saying to the committee, you have two options to the interdict application. The first option is to oppose the agent application, the interdict. But you do have the second option. The second option is to file an explanatory affidavit to the court in order to assist the court with your legal understanding of your duties arising from the Constitutional Court judgment. But we're of the view that the first option is the more appropriate and preferable one, because you'll be able to assert what you understand to be your duties and obligations arising from the Constitutional Court judgment. But we do caution.
More stories coming up after this short break. Stay with us.
Hey, got questions? Yeah, the big ones about relationships, purpose, pressure, faith, the real stuff that keeps you up at night. What if you had a guide? Not a lecture, not a textbook, but straight up answers from God's Word. Introducing the Questions Young People Ask magazine, the powerful all-new quarterly magazine with wisdom taught by Pastor Chris Oyakalomi. Find clarity. Discover your purpose in Christ. Every volume tackles the real issues pulsing through your world right now.
In my hand right now, I have the book, Questions Young People Ask. It's a great book to have answers to any question you have, written by our dear man of God, Reverend Dr. Chris Oyakalomi. I would encourage you, get yourself a copy.
I have the book with me, Questions Young People Ask, by our man of God, Pastor Chris. And it is available for you to purchase today, whether you want the ebook or the physical. So get yours today.
Ready for answers? Get your copy today. To subscribe for digital copies, please visit the Rhapsody mobile app, www.elibrary.loveworldbooks.org. To place your order for physical copies, send us a chat on King's Chat at QYPA Official, or call the numbers showing on your screen. Your questions deserve God's answers.
Speaking at the Senate, U.S. Senator John Kennedy has experienced his dissatisfaction with the newly signed MOU with Iran, loudly concerned of the regime's untrustworthiness, basically putting it out there that it will be naive of the world to think Iran's current regime can be trusted simply because they put a signature on paper, or that even that they understand the concept of peace, let alone believe in it. And it's important that one revisit what Iran said about the deal. They called it the pride of their country. And notably, while the United States has revealed its side of the interpretation of the deal, Iran said it will reveal its own side of interpretation at an appropriate time. It is an obvious fact that Iran does not recognize international law. It sees everything from the lenses of its religion.
Last night, Mr. President, I read the Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Iran. I read it twice. And for what it's worth, here's my conclusion. I think we ought to give peace a chance. And that's all I'm saying today. You're entitled to your opinion, but all I'm saying today is I think we ought to give peace a chance. I've, all week long, even before the memorandum came out, I've heard all the speculation about the agreement, the rank speculation. I've listened to people say, well, I don't like this, and I don't like that, and this is in it, and it shouldn't be, and this isn't in it, and it should be, and if we do this, this is going to happen. And it's all rank speculation. The people offering these points of view, to which they're entitled, they're not clairvoyant. They're not any more clairvoyant than I am. Just like me, they have to wait for the future, like everybody else. Here's what I see in the document. The only certainty, the only practical, real consequence of this document is that for 60 days, America has removed its blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. And for 60 days, Iran has removed its blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, which means ships containing oil and natural gas and fertilizer can go back and forth just like they were before the conflict.
Up next, let's have a look and see what's happening in the business news. Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana are standing firm, united to fight against the unjust Western global trade system that seeks to systematically cut them off the cocoa global supply market. This comes after Ghana farmers lamented, amongst other things, the unfairness that comes with exporting raw cocoa, where their earnings are close to nothing, while the Western chocolate market makes huge gains from their products. This also despite the fact that Africa accounts for over 80% of cocoa global supply trade. Moreover, before their grievances could be addressed, Western tech startups have come up with an artificial label-based cocoa replacement to the demise of the African cocoa agricultural sector.
If you use anything to produce something that's like chocolate, it's not chocolate. That's why they call it choco something, but they try to use the cho. But cho ends with chocolate, and chocolate is made from cocoa. Many people who are health conscious are beginning to look for organic and original products. And so yes, people can do their innovations, create artificial chocolate, artificial meat, artificial orange, artificial apples. If you want to eat artificial apples, you are free to do so. But many people in the world are now conscious about eating organic and healthy.
Visions of its charter, and in view of the need for coordinated action among African producing countries, the committee recommended officially opening the initiative to other countries, notably Nigeria and Cameroon. This expanded integration aims to reinforce regional cooperation and harmonize the sector's policies, strengthen collective bargaining power in global markets, and facilitates the share.
President Vladimir Putin has applauded the comprehensive strategic partnership between Russia and Vietnam, highlighting that bilateral trade has surpassed $6 billion following consistent year-over-year growth. The ongoing economic expansion leverages the free trade agreement signed between Vietnam and the Eurasian Economic Union.
Dear friends, I am very pleased to welcome you once again, dear comrade Le Min Hong, and to thank you for your active participation in the summit, marking the 35th anniversary of relations between Russia and ASEAN. I believe the summit was highly substantive. It not only highlighted the important and constructive role of the strategic partnership between Russia and the association in global affairs, but also outlined specific priorities for our future joint work. Vietnam is our long-standing and reliable partner, and not only a partner, but also an ally. The Russia-Vietnam Comprehensive Strategic Partnership is based on strong traditions of friendship, trust, and mutual assistance. Last year, bilateral trade increased by nearly 6%, 5.7 to 5.8%, surpassing $6 billion. Growth has continued this year. The Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economic, Scientific, and Technical Cooperation is called upon to play, and is playing, an active role in this process. Energy occupies an important place in bilateral relations. Rosatom, Gazprom, and Zarubezhneft are all operating in Vietnam. Education and science have held a special place ever since Soviet times. Over the years, Russia has trained tens of thousands of Vietnamese specialists. This is a whole army of Russia's friends. We know this, we feel it, and we hope that these vibrant people-to-people ties will continue. We share similar positions on many pressing international issues. We cooperate constructively within multilateral organizations, particularly the United Nations and BRICS. Today, following the successful summit with our ASEAN colleagues, we have a good opportunity to discuss the key areas of practical cooperation between our two countries. Once again, welcome. We are very pleased to see you.
China has once again criticized Japan's Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, for her remarks made during the just concluded G7 summit in France, where she stated that China's rare earth export restrictions on Japan may impact supply chains in G7 and related countries and expressed concerns. But she told reporters that G7 meetings that Japan would build a constructive and stable relationship with China and remained open to dialogue and would respond prudently based on national interests.
Japan has long been calling for a world free of nuclear weapons. In fact, it is relying more on nuclear umbrellas and made dangerous remarks of seeking the possession of nuclear weapons, which poses severe challenges to post-war international order and the non-proliferation regime. We urge Japan to reflect on itself, follow its obligations of NPT, abide by non-nuclear three principles, and not to seek nuclear weapons in any form. China urges the U.S. to abandon its Cold War mentality, stop its provocative policy and moves, abandon such arrangements such as nuclear sharing and extended deterrence, make concrete actions to uphold regional peace and stability and global strategic stability. We also hope that the ROK can take extra prudence and do more things that is conducive to regional stability.
发言人你好，环球时报环球网记者提问。据报道，在近日七国集团领导人会议上，日本。
It is reported that during a recent G7 summit session, Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi raised concerns over China's export restrictions on critical minerals and other measures targeting Japan, claiming that these measures could impact the supply chains of the G7 and the like-minded nations. At a news conference after the summit, she stated that Japan will build a constructive and a stable relationship with China. Dialogue with China remains open, and Japan will continue to respond calmly. From the perspective of national interest, what's your comment?
Let's recap on today's headlines. South Africa's Parliament Impeachment Committee presses towards President Ramaphosa's impeachment. Senator John Kennedy not satisfied with the deal and insists he does not trust Iran. Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana unite to tackle cocoa sector pressures imposed by the West. And lastly, President Putin has praised Vietnam relations as trade surpasses $6 billion. And that brings us up to the end of this 2 p.m. news update. Thank you for watching. This is Love Outside. My name is Donald Makombe. Have a great afternoon and goodbye.